All right, hey guys, welcome back to the DFM podcast. This is episode 4 now, and in this podcast, I have Dan Brown Jr. with me. As all the other podcasts, I don't tend to introduce the people. I like to let them introduce themselves and their background and history. So, Dan, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, your experiences, be as detailed as you want.
Sure. I'm, again, Dan Brown Jr., and I'm the creative director of CrimeSonics. We are a globally distributed production music library that specializes in criminal and investigatory production music and sound effects, and now police chatter, which is pretty cool. And I also own and operate as a bit of a side girlfriend or side mistress, SampleHero.com. And that's a fun little side project because it has a cult following, about 20,000 customers around the world. And what we do is we create incredibly, insanely simple virtual instruments. All of the emphasis there is focused on the playability and usability, sound quality, and virtually no effort is really put into the way the stuff looks. It's just all about the sound.
Well, here, that's a lot of time what composers are looking for. Sometimes interfaces can kind of get in the way, and I think it was Daniel James that actually spoke about that before. He's complaining about a library. He says if they didn't just go so fucking in detailed with how this library looked, it actually could sound decent.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the heart and soul of that project. It stemmed and started from, not to jump ahead, but I found myself very frustrated at times just trying to write fast and paging through all kinds of weird menus and screens, and specifically sounds that were too designed, too busy, pads that were moving too much. Everything was so present, and that's not what the gig is. Sometimes you need to be felt, not heard. And so I started building products just out of necessity, and then I realized that they started being the stuff that I would reach for the fastest. And that's why I said, you know what, let's just put this out there for the world and see if anybody wants this stuff.
Cool. Well, I was interested to get you on because I've been contacted you for a while now on Facebook. I've had you added a while, and you're very proactive on Facebook, which is what I like, with other composers, with helping people and sort of just being out there in the community. And seeing that you run both companies has had me interested in getting you on this chat, because you are the first person that's actually is going to be on the podcast now that comes from a publishing standpoint and comes from an actual sample library standpoint as well. So which one actually came first, and we'll go from there? Was it a production company or the sample library company?
That's a great question. So I'm assuming, like probably most people who will be listening to this podcast, I started just as a composer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was just, I just want to write music for TV. And however that looks, like everyone's path is different. And so it started just there. And then what I kind of alluded to was the samples came. Let me back up. I was creating sample libraries for myself for several years. And I think I had like 35 or 40 of them already created, which I was using often. And so it was this thing that kind of happened. It's kind of hard to describe that because it's so closely related to my own composition, right? I'd be working on something, and then I would think, you know what, let me go ahead and create a piece of software while I'm working on this, since I need these sounds anyway.
Well, then let me sort of rephrase. So I'm guessing you would have then, obviously, like a lot of composers, you would have been trying to get that realism into your project by recording sounds as you're going. So what would have came first, the actual company when you start selling your own libraries, like sample libraries, or the actual publisher then?
Yeah, the publishing thing's actually new. So that's the newest endeavor. I started as a composer, got into sound design when I was hired at Disney, and I worked at Disney for a year as a sound designer composer.
Well, you can elaborate a bit on that if you want, because that sounds pretty interesting to me. How was that gig?
Well, I don't know who's all going to listen to this. So it was a wonderful gig. I loved it. I'll tell you a couple things about working for Disney. It was a full-time gig, great income, a wonderful opportunity. I very much enjoyed who I worked for, and even some of the projects, they seem, everyone's different. So some of the projects I worked on are very, like, I think dream projects for someone else maybe. Like
Yeah.
I scored, like a Star Wars commercial for Target, and like stuff like that's so cool to someone else, and it is to someone else. Like it just wasn't my thing.
That's fair
And
enough.
yeah, for everyone has their own styles and things that they enjoy. And there were a couple of projects that I did really enjoy a lot. We would do sound alikes to tracks. Like Disney would secure a license for a popular song, because to license the actual song would be way more
Oh
than
yeah.
if we could just do a derivative.
Hmm.
And so like we did some of those, and then those would go into like social media videos, and we'd finish a project on a Tuesday, and then Wednesday, the next day, Disney would put it out. By Friday it'd have 70 million views. It was so seeing that kind of stuff was cool. I scored some of their mobile games. That was fun, because like there was some 8-bit stuff. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, some of those projects were fun. I did get to work completely from home, which is pretty amazing.
Always
Uh,
a big plus.
yeah, it's a big plus. But I made it kind of clear. I said, "Look, guys, I got a ridiculous home studio. I have 400 instruments from around the world. I mean, like, this is a lot going on over here. Like, to come into this traffic and to sit in this cubicle and plunk around on these sample libraries, like this is not why you hired me. I can promise you." But it was a full-time gig, but it was a contract gig. And at the end of 1 year, it was so sad, because there was talk about possibly going full-time. I was interested at the time. It didn't pan out. I mean, there was a lot of stuff going on. I can't remember all the details, but I know Disney went on a hiring freeze. A lot of contractors got cut. It was definitely not just me.
Hmm.
And it was actually the best thing that ever happened to me, was when that opportunity ended so abruptly. And it was it was right after that is when I decided, well, okay, maybe I'll do that sample library thing now, because I've been kicking this around for a few years anyway, and I had the extra time. And so Sample Hero wouldn't have launched if I would not have uh, discontinued my work at Disney.
Yeah, Sample Hero. I own a few of the samples. I think the first one I ever got from Sample Hero was the hand pan. Uh,
Yes, love that thing.
yeah, so do I. It's like, as you said, like it's super simplistic, but it has a great sound, really good resonance, and it can be used in not just like crimes. It's just great for underscore in general. Like
It
it's
is.
a really really good instrument. I have one or two of the horror stuff as well, because
Yeah.
I enjoy writing horror music, and they're pretty good samples. They're very versatile, but they come with some good just stock sounds to throw into a horror track straight away as well.
I love that you have those. The ones you are articulating are some of the best selling ones. The handpan is a fun story, just because a friend of mine, I won't mention his name, but he's a very well established quote unquote name brand composer. It's actually his handpan, and I I just begged the guy. I said, "Look, dude, you gotta let me borrow this thing. I'm going to sample this thing, because all those are handmade. They probably do have factory made ones, but all the good ones are handmade.
Yeah.
And his was specifically very unique, and I just had to get it. And so I brought it in, and I went to town on that thing, because I wanted to get that thing so right. And actually that day I sampled that, a tongue drum, two or three different tongue drums, and some of the instruments I made, they didn't live up to the quality that I have, and so I didn't even release them. I just kept them on my hard drive. I'll never sell them, because they don't sound that good. But that one is super special.
Yeah, and one thing I do like about Sample Hero is, which your website does, it's super affordable. Like
No,
it, like ridiculously affordable compared to
absolutely.
a lot of websites nowadays. Now, don't get me wrong. If you're recording a full size symphony orchestra and you have multiple mics, yeah, okay,
Right.
you got to have a massive price on it, but you have very reasonable prices on the instruments that are actually there.
Yeah, I appreciate that, brother. And that also comes from the heart of, like, I just want to help people, dude. And it's so hard to find good sounds cheap sometimes. And so that was the heart of this whole thing, was let me put out stuff that's high quality, super simple to use, and cheap. And hopefully we get, a following. And, we do. We have a following, great, great customer base. I actually need to send an email out, because I want to I want people to send in more like videos of them using the stuff and show me what they're creating. That would
Yeah,
excite.
it'd be cool to see what sort of tracks, or even like, so if a challenge. I think you did a few challenges at one point. Did you actually? Was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we've had a bunch of competitions, and I usually award the winner
Hmm.
of the competition just every single product on our store. Like you get the
Yeah.
whole line, and I
Like,
think we're up to like 150 products or something now.
that's it. Like, why wouldn't you enter that competition? Like,
Yeah, it's like $10 to enter. Because like the way we structure it is, since we're just giving away so much stuff anyway, we're just like, we'll mark something way down to like $10 or $12. So like, buy this one thing for way cheaper than it should ever be. Have fun with it, write music with it, and then you might get all of our software for free.
well,
It's it really isn't something that I do for the money, though. It is quite lucrative. It's a wonderful side income. I mean, it could probably be my main income, but
oh
you
yeah,
know,
like, and stuff like, especially discounts like that, they can help a lot of samplers. There's a composer on Facebook, Alex. I can't pronounce his second name. He's a European. He's known as the bald European to a lot of people. He's a bald composer, but he has a big following on YouTube, and he has a lot of small sort of samplers that he sells on his website. He discounted one of them to $1, and within, I think, 3 days made 10,000 on it.
yeah, isn't that crazy?
Like, it's crazy, but that shows, like, if you actually just get like libraries to actual reasonable prices, you can
Well,
sell them just as much as the overpriced ones that are out there. Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. No, it is. Yeah, you were right on the money there. We're working on some fancy new stuff right now. Actually, I'm real
well,
excited about
that's what I was kind of going to ask you a few things. One, what would be your favorite sort of instrument or library that you've actually produced through SampleHero?
it. Yeah, that is a good question. We started a year ago. Well, not to sound like I'm trying to sell our hand pan. The customers have spoken on that one. That's one of our best selling libraries, and so like that obviously, in that whole process of creating that and the way it sounds, and I just love that thing. But we started creating for Omnisphere about a year ago, and I really, really enjoy creating an Omnisphere more than even the contact libraries.
So
And
much creativity with Atmosphere, I feel.
oh my gosh, and my gosh, dude, I love those things. We did one of our first products was called Dark Textures Volume One. We're going to do four more of those, and that product, it has 50 or 100, I can't remember right now, but I think it's 50 textures, but each one is built on all four layers of Omnisphere 2.6. And so you hold down the key, and every one of those evolves and moves around for 3 4 minutes, and they're 4 layers deep. And
Yeah,
so you can take out layer B, or only use layer A and D, or only layer C, or C and A, or whatever you want to do it. And I mean, that's one button film score. You hit the key, hold down middle C on that thing,
oh
and
yeah,
it's I man, that's one of my favorite ones we've ever done.
it's literally just underscore at one click of a key.
It's yeah, it's score a documentary. It's eerie with one product, and you're good to go. So that one for sure. We have a product called CrimeSonics Volume One, and it's kind of an all-encompassing. There's arts, there's glassy things, there's playable textures, there's underscores, there's all kind of some crimey stuff in there, right?
Hmm.
And so that one is really cool, but that one's a little bit more expensive too, because I think it's got like 200 or 300 sounds, and it's a big one.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'll let the cat out of the bag now because I'm even doing live videos with it. But I'm creating cybercrime for Omnisphere right now,
Oh,
and
nice.
it's a behemoth of stuff. I mean, this thing is huge. And it'll probably have 300 sounds. It's really, really cool.
Well, here having a big sound pool to choose from isn't a bad thing. It just gives you a
No,
lot of creative expression really within a library.
yeah, yeah, it's so much fun. And
And
again, I make it from my own writing too. So when like when I'm in here working on the cybercrime software, I'm not thinking like a sound designer, and I'm not thinking like some software company. And I think that does happen at times, and that's why Sometimes we buy products and they're not useful.
Hmm.
I am thinking, okay, insanely simple. What's the second half of the slogan? Incredibly musical. It's got to be musical. It's got to be useful. I delete patches all the time. Can I use this? Is this even usable? No, delete. Right.
And going forward, I'm sure, like, being so heavily involved in sound and creating samples, you must have one instrument or one sound that you just haven't recorded yet that you'd really love to record. Do you have one of them? Or
No, yeah, I do. I think I mentioned I have a huge collection of instruments, and I'm just a collector of instruments. I'm always looking for things, and in storage, I have a mid-century harpsichord, and I haven't gotten to sample that yet. And like, there's all kinds of sample libraries for harpsichords, but there's not mine, right? I want to do mine, and it's this really cool little. It's really cool, man. It's a very cool harpsichord. So I really want to sample that one.
funny enough, like harpsichord, to anyone that understand the instrument, wouldn't come across as typical nowadays for like
Yeah,
crime or dirty underscore. But if anyone has ever watched the Hannibal TV series, there's
yeah,
harpsichord all over that, and that's
yeah,
that's an amazing score, I think, for TV. Unbelievable score. But
yeah,
harpsichord gives a lot on that, and it works really well.
yeah. And because of its plucking of the strings, its percussive nature in a way. Harpsichord does a really interesting job of brightening up melodies when they're blended on top, right? So if
Hmm.
you already have something going on, establishing your theme, if you want a little bit of extra bite, you can blend a harpsichord in the way, a little bit of EQ. You won't even maybe identify right away that it's a harpsichord, but you do have that immediate gratification of, wow, now my melody is clearer. And so it's definitely something I can't wait to sample, but don't, hold your breath. That thing's bundled up and wrapped in there, and there's
A lot
40
of digging to
tracks
find that
on.
out.
Yeah.
That's fair enough. Well, move if I get a few more questions, because I probably will come back to the samples. We'll move on to the publisher, because I've had one trailer composer on here, Cody Still, and a TV composer, Danny Clinton, does previous to you. So both of them are used to writing with publishers. So coming now from the point of actually owning a production company, um, how did you actually go about getting that started, and what exactly drew you to the crime genre? Was it, did you see a gap somewhere within the market, or what exactly just grabbed you there?
Well, here's okay, because I've been asked that question a lot. So why crime? Well, first let me explain. I decided to no longer be a gigging or touring musician, to write music for TV, and specifically for crime television. So this has been the goal from the get-go. I've always enjoyed true crime, um, just as a fan of the genre, not a fan of the crime, a fan of the solving, right?
Hmm.
The investigation, the forensics, whatever it may be. It's the criminal justice system, and then how it's dramatized on television. I'm not a fan of scripted crime shows. It's all reality, true crime. That's my passion as a fan. And then so as a musician, I've always been drawn to those sounds. They're not always darker. Sometimes they're melancholic. Sometimes they're even a bit neutral or ambiguous. But you know, like being someone, I play a lot of instruments, and then you can watch these shows, and you can hear all these different sounds, all these different instruments. Could be slide guitar from a Southern Justice show in Texas, right? Or we've done like Native American crime music with Native American flutes,
Pan flu, yeah. Get the
all
flutes
kinds
out.
of cool stuff. So I've always just been a fan of the genre, and then my personal stylings and stylistic kind of writing, it just fits the genre. So fast forward all that, writing for various production music libraries. Uh, Anytime the opportunity gets to write for the crime briefs, I was always jumping on those. And then after doing it for a decade, if I would start looking at the royalty statements, I can see that, wow, the stuff that I do the best and I love to do the most is also the stuff that's making me the most money. And so it's like, okay, I mean, this is obviously the trajectory for me, right? I want to do this. I got into doing this, and now this is the thing that's paying the bills. Also, I'll say my very first placement ever, MSNBC. on a crime report. Next placement, 48 hours, Dateline NBC, right? So it's like, okay, these are like the
It's a
very
calling.
first, it's a calling, dude. And so now to answer the second part of your question, I think you had asked like, how did I go from that to the publishing thing?
Hmm.
um, no names. I was at a Christmas dinner with a very well-established composer who owns a library. And I was a bit frustrated that uh, I couldn't write enough, right? Like I'm like I have a lot of bandwidth. I really want to get this thing going, and I felt like this individual kind of shut it down a little bit. Like, oh, well, we got a lot going on. And now that I'm a publisher, I totally get it. But at the time, I was like, well, man, if you don't want all this crime music that I'm just itching to write, I am just going to go start my own thing. And so what I did was I started my own thing, and for a year, I, sleuthed around, right? And I found some other people who were good at this or who were passionate about this, who wanted to join, with me. And yeah, I put 35 composers under non-disclosure agreements. And for a year, we wrote crime music, and we built 26 volumes of crime music.
Great.
And so it's like I had a pretty good sized little boutique library, all on our own, all secretively. Was no Facebook posts or anything. Wasn't no social media. Look what we're doing. It was like, let's build this thing. And
Well,
then, I came up with a look. I came up with a brand. I came up with like a I don't know. I guess I've already articulated it, right? Like a look and a brand that it doesn't look like your typical what you'd expect. You're not going to see shiny cop cars and blue and red lights. Like, no, we're going for this very minimalistic thing. It's black, red, and white, and it's right there, and throw a little blood on it. And that's it, right? Very simple. And that's just because I'm a simple kind of person when it comes to just writing or the samples or whatever. I just want to be very, very to the point, right? This
yes,
is what
nice and
you need.
direct.
Man, this is what you want. I got it. Let's go, right?
Hmm.
And then I started meeting with, and we can talk more about this in detail if you're interested, but I knew that, anyone could start a library, but that doesn't matter, right? All libraries are not created equal. What comes next is that distribution. Can you get it to the shows? Can you get it in there? If you have pre-existing relationships, then you're good. Start a library, go to town. So yeah, we have that. But if can you get sub-publishing in all the big territories around the world? And so I set out right away that I was going to go get that global distribution right away.
Well,
And
explain how. Yeah, go ahead. Explain how you looked into it, because I know at one point, because I'm finishing up my business diploma. I'll be
yeah,
finished this soon. Music business diploma. I've looked into maybe starting a production library company at one point. Not now in particular, but
yeah,
because over here in Ireland, that type of stuff is like it's tiny compared to like the UK, Germany, and obviously, of course, America. It's
yeah,
tiny. Um, so I was looking to like, okay, I wanted to have an outlet to help Irish media-based composers to have a production library by someone that actually understands, has a passion for that, does the genre, like just media, music in general, because Ireland's very rock and bands and singer-songwriter based, not compositional based.
yeah.
Um, so explain, like, if Daniel probably in the same boat there, like how would you look into getting the sub-publishing and going forward?
Well, yeah, is it easy to do? No, right? It's
No,
not an easy thing to do because if it was, everybody would do it. And
exactly.
then,
Yeah.
yeah. And then everyone's path to obtaining that is going to be different as well. But it all comes down to, right, a couple of things. One, relationships. You have to meet people, so you have to physically go to where they are. So, networking purposefully, not randomly, right? Knowing that, okay, if I go to this thing at this event, this guy is speaking, or if I go to this conference, I know that the people that run that entity are there. And now that I'm going to that thing, there is no time to be shy. I'm walking up to these
Oh yeah.
people and we got to talk about this. And, again, like I had already built this thing that I was so proud of. And I just knew I just like, I just knew it was going to be good. And then I had already been speaking on panels and becoming I don't want to say well known, but known in our industry. It's not a huge industry really. And
No, it
so
looks very big, but people tend to find out who each other are actually very fast, especially with the
yeah,
internet as well.
yeah, it's not super big. And like I've always tried to do the right thing, be a guy who wants to help, confidently humble. And so when I had the opportunity, I spoke, I won't list all the sub publishers, but I spoke with several sub publishers. When I met with BMG Production Music, I could just tell like this is the right fit right now for
Hmm.
where CrimeSonics is. We're ready to do this thing. Here's the amount of volumes we have. Here's the distribution platform that they have. And the whole process took about 2 months or 3 months even, because there's the initial meetings, there's the pitching. I had to then put together a lot of content, send it over to them. They needed to see the marketing and to hear the music and understand it. So we had all of this stuff going on, all under the radar. And I was able to pin the deal. We signed the deal. We have we'll go into the details of the deal, but there's a deal.
Hmm.
And it was pretty cool to be able to finally do what we all want to do, right? Make our Facebook announcement, but make it in such a neat way. Like, congratulations to the 35 other people
Yeah,
who trusted me for the last year.
yeah,
Congratulations to
exactly.
those guys, because they didn't have to write this kind of music. They did not have to gamble on me, but they did, and it all worked out. And man, that was a great day. That was a great day. So yeah, network, be intentional. That's kind of how you do it.
And landing that's a very big sub-publishing deal to land as well. Like people don't realize BMG, we probably seen as the fourth biggest publishing company in the world, really,
Yeah.
just behind Universal, Warner Chaplin, Sony, ATV. BMG's base just there with them. Like, so that's a massive sub-publishing deal to get.
Yeah, we distribute every month between 2 and 10 volumes to 20 territories around the world. It's awesome, man. I love it every day. I mean, all day, every day we're doing this stuff, and it's
Well,
every
here,
time.
if a voice that I always remember get given, it says, if you do it, if you do a job that you love, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah,
That's
and I tell you what, and I agree with that. And to add to it, you never work a day in your life, yet you're still exhausted at the end of the day.
that is also very,
Let me
very true.
let me tell you.
So going forward with with that, with the publishing, do you still sign composers now? Or are you still with the 35 they have? And if you sign new composers, what are you looking for in that composer?
Yeah, that's a great question. So yeah, we're up to 60 or 65 composers now. I'll let the cat out of the bag a little bit. We have also been creating a YouTube channel for months, and I mean it's no small endeavor. It is quite the endeavor.
Hmm.
And one of the things that we'll be releasing is, and these will actually this particular video will sit on our website, and it will articulate exactly what CrimeSonics is looking for in composers. And I'll tell you, I mean, I have the script pretty much memorized. I can tell you what's in there.
Well,
If
go ahead.
Yeah, so if you are first, welcome to CrimeSonics, right? If you want to write for us, great. Here's the truth of the matter, though. If you are not you, but whoever, if the composer is a fully in the box type of composer, I'm not saying that they cannot find a home at CrimeSonics, but I am saying it's a little bit harder, a lot of it harder. And transparently, it's because we all do that, right? We can all push samples around and we can all manipulate things and play with MIDI notes. Like we really can. Like that's the gig. You better have that gig down.
Yeah.
What CrimeSonics is looking for is people that are the definition of our tagline, which is exquisitely criminal. Exquisite. I'm looking for people. We are looking for people who have a unique compositional voice and who have strength in places that already people on our team do not have. Our cello series is not software cello. We have some of the best cellists in the world that write for us. We have multiple Emmy Award winners, multiple Grammy nominated people who you would know but change their name to write for us, right? The people that deliver on a weekly basis are phenomenal. They're phenomenal. And so what we're looking for are people who are phenomenal. Like, I can't stress that enough. Like, I have a internal saying, which I'll now make external, which is, if you write a good track, I'm going to reject it. If you write a great track, I'll probably give you notes. if, you, if you write an exquisite track, yeah, I'll bring that one into the library. So that's it. Like, yes, we're looking for people, but it's very, very hard to get on our team.
But
And
I think
I
it
would
has
reject
to be a lot. If
yeah,
any production library or publisher wants to succeed,
yeah,
I think they need to have those high standards. Like, I was only talking about that in the previous podcast with Cody Steele about trailer music. Trailer music, in my eyes, probably has the highest production standard in most like media style composition. The production standards in trailer music is usually through the roof. But any publishers, they need to hold high standards to get the placements they want and to hear the music on their albums that they want to hear.
yeah. It has to be incredibly high. Uh, like, here's some things that I don't even allow into our library. I will not take music that has fake brass. It will never come into CrimeSonics. Let the world know. If you use strings in your writing, it needs to be top lined with a real violinist. Or if you are so good with manipulating your samples that I can't tell, then I'll take it.
Well,
We have,
congratulations if you get to that point.
yeah, we have emotional violin volume series. We have a visceral viola coming out. We have our somber cello series. These are all real string players. And in that, yeah. And then coming from the sample library standpoint, like with our horror libraries, that's all very close mic'd, raw and nasty, hairy bow rosin string instruments. I just want to hear that. And when I start hearing that, dull, distant, fuzzy sheen of these sample libraries, I just shut down. It's like, nope, I can't do it, man. I can't do it. So yeah, you're right. The standard has to just be incredibly high. And here's why, right? There's so much competition. There's so much
Exactly.
competition. And everyone wants to make a big library. I don't want to make a big library. I hope our library becomes big. I just want to make a phenomenal library. And I don't want to change gears on us, but that has become the hardest thing for me as a person. The hardest thing about running a production music library is how many people I have to say no to
Hmm.
every week. And it's affected me so much as a person that I now only review content on Fridays, on one day a week. That's it. Because I have to recover emotionally from wrecking everybody's day. It's
But
terrible.
that's just having good nature within yourself. But composers, like, if I've talked about this in previous podcasts as well, like composers, they need to, like, one thing I was advised was to have tough skin when being a
Yeah.
composer, but it's not even that. It's just being real with yourself. Like, if you've been rejected from a library, go back. Hopefully, the library hasn't said no to you and actually given you constructive criticism, and go back to
Yeah.
the criticism and reevaluate what you're actually writing and see, is it true? Like,
Yeah. No, you're right there. Quick story. I remember when I first got into this 10 years ago, I wrote a track for a library, and I remember these notes clearly because they said your A section should be really your B section, and your B section really should be your A section. And now you need to compose something to connect the two. So really you're going to end up with an A and a C, go write a new B. And the reason why I'll never forget that is because when I wrote the middle section, sent the track in, got the approval, when I got my very first royalty statement on my very first placement, it was that new B section that didn't even exist that got the placement. And that was the thing that changed my whole attitude to publishers and getting that feedback. I was like, you know what? I would not have gotten this placement. I would have not become a legitimate quote unquote composer without that advice, humbling myself and taking it. I tell you what, man, like I think about that often.
yeah, like the editors are, whoever it is in the publishing company is, if they're working for a soup or an editor, they aren't trying to be a pain to you. They're doing these criticisms for a reason. It's not just to make your life hard.
Yeah, you're right. I tell I tell people every week, I wish I could say yes to every single person. For one, we'd have a huge freaking library. I wish I could say yes, but I don't. And I think I probably, I don't want to use the word reject because so I reject, but it's really more that I pass because I know it's still great content, but I pass on probably 80% of the submissions from new composers. When new people are coming in, about 80% I pass on. And then with our existing composers, at about 60 people, I maybe have 10 that nail it on the first try. Maybe 10.
I'm guessing they're probably the more experienced composers you're talking about that are going under different names, that are very experienced and know
Yeah.
their craft very well.
Yeah, and they're really good at mixing. Most of the notes I would say 95% of the notes I give have nothing to do with the composition because we've established from the the onset or the outset, like, you know how to write music, that's why you're here. My notes are usually I hear the things that people don't hear, the little mistakes of little things off the grid that should be on the grid, or the little pop, or a little extra noise, or did you even notice that 122.7 hertz has got a bubble going crazy over there? So that's where that stuff comes in.
But again, that's important, because if you are pitching music to industry standard briefs or to try to get placements, they will have someone like that listening to music within the editing studio, listen to this music, and if they hear it, well, then that could turn around and be like, no, we're going to reject that track.
Yeah, exactly right. And you no one would want to be known as the library of music that's full of hissing and popping and cutting samples loops off in the mid loop and you hear that flick, or that stuff just bums me out.
No, because as you said, the community actually isn't as big as you think, and a word like that would pass very
Oh yeah.
fast.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It really would.
So, are you still composing currently towards a CrimeSonic, or are you taking more the backseat now and just trying to run it?
Oh, I love that question. It's um how do I answer that? So right now, physically I'm on rest.
Mhm.
I have some overusage injuries in my hands. And so I have like braces on them at night, stuff like that. So right now I'm not doing anything, but on a normal, like, day in and day out life, I have set up CrimeSonics where I'm like all hands off Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, kind of Thursday. And I'm just in here just like everyone else, as a composer, as a writer. And if I'm not composing, I'm working on a piece of software for SampleHero and then to use to compose. So most of the time I'm still composing.
So you're still, that probably keeps you pretty happy to keep that though in your life. So it's actually where you're not sitting there feeling, sitting in your home studio, saying, "God, I'm actually not writing anymore. I'm still heavily involved in this."
Yeah, no, you're right. And that was another reason why I changed my schedule. I will take anyone's questions via Facebook, or if every day I'm on the elliptical, I'll get on the call and I'll talk people on like, I'll say, rudely, I guess, on my time. I will definitely take calls. I want to be helpful and
Oh
keep
yeah, you're
people.
very approachable to like this.
Yeah.
Do not go adding Dan on Facebook to anyone listening to spamming him with messages. Send a polite message if you want to, but he is very approachable to talk to.
I want to help people. No one helped me, dude, when I started, so I'm here to help. But yeah, I had to change the schedule where I was only listening to tracks on Friday. And now, having said that, when I give notes on Friday, some of my guys will rush to get an edit done and get it fixed like that day or maybe the next day. So I'll be spotty throughout the whole weekend now. So Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, my studio is in a building right behind our house. So I can just come right back here, load a track in, listen to it real quick. I'm in and out on the weekends, but Monday through Thursday, I'm just writing away, buddy.
Yes, well, that kind of answers the question I had. So, I was going to ask about workload really, but it sounds like you've kind of been at it enough now to where you know how to balance your workload to do what you want to do, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Discipline is so important. And then the other thing too, like we briefly talked about, and we'll keep it brief, is on Fridays we have this whole, I mean, behemoth of a YouTube channel coming out. It's going to be something ridiculous, and so that's also on Fridays. So I've just looked at Friday now as that's that's the work day. That's when we're shooting the video. We have a whole YouTube set over in this other part of the studio here.
Okay.
So like we're over there, we're doing YouTube, we got all that stuff going on. I'm doing interfacing with
It
composers and things.
it's a great platform though. Like I started this up as well. One, I like to compose music, and the business side has really got me into sort of starting this up. But I just like talking to people that know music and can understand. But for me to personally learn off the people that are ahead of me, and to anyone sort of listening, just to learn off people that I get on as well. And it's a great YouTube in general is a great platform just to for any company to really get on to spread any social media.
I agree with you 100%. That's something that's been on my heart for a few years actually. And and just like we were talking about, I've been putting out there for years now, like if you want help, I'm like genuinely willing to help. And what I have found is many people have very similar questions.
Hmm.
There's a lot more people at the beginning of this game than at the success level of this game.
Oh, definitely.
And so I thought, you know what? Am I really doing more of a disservice to people taking all these one-on-one calls when I could just take these questions and put them out there in a way where they're more, like mass consumption?
Exactly, like that's what when I record these episodes, I spread them across to a lot of Facebook groups that I'm on, and some of them
No.
get rejected, and that's I know why they're rejecting it's to do a share policy, but they probably think that I'm just sharing it to say, oh, he wants to bring people to his YouTube channel, but
Yeah.
it's genuine because I know there's gonna be people listening to this if they do that they might be they might think, oh, this is a stupid question I want to ask in the Facebook group, and it's probably being asked here, and they can hear the answer right here.
Yeah. I tell you what, if I, I experienced that same kind of thing. You share to a group, you get the admins who take that role very serious,
Mhm.
and I just don't even care about this stuff. It's not even on my radar. I will share in every single group. I'm being very transparent. I don't even care what the policies are. I don't have time to read them all. Honestly, frankly, if you don't like it, just delete it. Like you're not hurting my feelings, but I am just trying to help. So whatever. I don't care.
That's kind of the way I'm looking at it as well. But I did notice that you shared the CrimeSonic YouTube channel, so that's a big project. I saw you share, I think it was today on Facebook. So that's obviously a big project you're looking into going forward, is it?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Like I think when we start making the content live, we'll probably be at somewhere around 30 videos completed with 60, 70 in development. We're
Ooh,
looking at it. Yeah, and I mean, this is full blown multi-camera, 4K, custom lighting, YouTube set, the whole nine. Like it's the whole nine.
you're really going
It's
all out.
Yeah, it's like we are looking at it as this is just as important, like becoming a resource for the industry to understand this industry, right?
Hmm.
For the industry to understand this industry. Like to me, that's so important.
Oh yeah,
Outside of music, I have a master's in instructional design. And so that part of my education, my experiences, I want to flex those muscles as well. I want to help people, right?
exactly.
And I thought, you know what, dude, we're it's time. We're at a place, we have the facility, we have the resources to do this in such a world-class way now. If we don't do it now, it would it would be sad. It would just be sad. We have to do it.
And am I right in saying, because I was actually on your website today, are you running that as a family?
Yeah. So, well, yes and no. So my wife, she has a full-time job. She works in pain management, works in the medical field. But she's so smart. I've entrusted her with all of our metadata. And
Oh
I tell you
God,
what,
good luck to
yeah.
that woman. Oh Jesus.
Well, I tell you what, she's got protocols now and little systems in place that she does. It's impeccable. Like I know our people are going to get paid. I know when their stuff gets used, it's going to be reported accurately. If there's a mistake made, it's not because of something that we've done. Like we are so on top of it, right? And my son, he is like, even as we speak, my son's on the clock right now, and he's setting up our, what's it, OBS Studio
Yeah, the
Live.
OBS studios for live streaming. Yeah,
Yeah, he's setting all that stuff up right now, and we have another audio visualized volume going up today, and so like that's cybercrime one's going up today. So we finished that one, and yeah, so it's kind of like a family thing, and you know,
that's really cool. Well, like that's I actually say that's a really positive thing because a lot of like when you come from composing originally, a lot of people if their partner or someone near them isn't involved in music or doesn't, it can be very hard for them to understand. Oh, why are you spending hours in the studio? Or why are you doing this? Like it's very hard for them to understand.
yeah, no, I think you're probably right. I remember when I had my wife come over for the very first time. It was, you know, brought her into my home studio at the time and sat her down. This is what I do. I hope you're okay with it, because if this all works out between you and I, I'm gonna be doing this stuff.
Yeah, no, it's. I think that's really great. Well, I only have a few more little questions.
Sure.
I could can talk for ages about all this stuff, but because the podcast is only sort of grown, I'm trying to keep these episodes sort of shorter. So hopefully, whoever's listening is still listening to it because this channel is still only small and growing. So as the podcast grows, if it does, I'm going to try to make long ones. And if people want to have you back on, which they probably will, you're really knowledgeable in the industry. So I wouldn't, if people want you back on, I'll happily contact you because, as I said, Dan is very easy to contact.
Yeah,
But
absolutely.
don't spam him. One of the last questions. What advice would you give a person going forward, either looking to start their own sample library company, and then two, looking to start their own, I know we kind of covered it, but looking to start their own publisher and production library company?
Um, my first piece of advice would be, don't start it too soon. If you want to start your own library, it would be really wise to write for multiple publishers so you can pull from all those best practices. I think I've
Mhm.
written for 10 or so different publishers, maybe more. And when we established how we were going to do things with CrimeSonics, I mean, in every way, how we would take submissions and, you know, from the quality of the content to how we would name our tracks and our contracts, everything was what I believed was the best practice from each and every library.
That's
And
great
then,
advice, I think.
yeah, and then when and then you can cross-reference, like, wow, like all 6 of those libraries did that thing.
Hmm.
So that's probably a good idea. And then every library I wrote for wants this kind of stem, so that's mandatory. But only this one guy wants this thing, so that might not be that good of an idea. So, so that would be the first thing. Don't start too soon, and fully get invested in the business side. Like if you don't fully understand your contracts, and
Oh yeah.
if you don't fully understand how the money works, and you don't fully understand things like audio detection software, what does it mean if someone says exclusivity and perpetuity, or like any of this stuff, right? Like, become an expert at least the basics,
Mhm.
right? Then start your library. And also too, like if you not to beat this to death, but if you don't like listening to other people's music, if you have ego, like if you are afraid that a composer is going to send in stuff and you can't listen to it or something, like it's probably not the gig for you. You have to be no ego, wanting to listen, loving what you're doing. So that's my first piece of advice. Second piece of advice is, and this is a DBJ opinion right here, right off top. Do something niche, because there are already too many buffet libraries. In my
Yeah,
opinion, you might
yeah.
agree with me or not. Do something special. Do something. Be the one place that does upside down Brazilian clown music, whatever that is. Do something niche. And then in regard to sample libraries, don't do anything like SampleHero and you're good to go. No, sample libraries is a hard gig. Here's what I'll tell you. It does not matter how good your samples are if you don't cultivate a massive email list. emails are gold. So if you want to go build the greatest samples in the world, it's fine. Just sharing those in a Facebook group or just sticking them on some sample review channel, none of that is really going to help you. You need to be able to hit an email and it goes out to 30, 40,000 composers at one time. Wham, there's our new product. And that's how you're going to be successful in that game.
Yeah, I think I want to go back to this one thing about the publishing. I think that's one thing that people forget if they want to get involved in this. Like when I started my uh, business publisher, it was because I actually went in just wanting to learn. There's three different modules. There's the recording, live industry, the recorded industry, and the publishing industry. I just
Yeah.
went in to actually physically learn about the publishing industry module because one, I just knew it would teach me about contracts and general royalty stuff to benefit me as a freelance composer. Not actually knowing that I'd actually really, really enjoy the actual business aspect as a whole. I would happily work now physically in the industry side, doing publishing or sync, etc., because that's actually what I'm really interested in now. But people, I think, should realize being musical is only one step of the way if you actually want to get a music company going.
Yeah.
There really is like compulsory things you should know. Like, one thing I was always advised, like, know what sort of contract you got to set out to composers if you do set a production library. Is it going to be exclusive, non-exclusive, single song assignment? Like, what you got to be offering? Like, and these terms could fly over people's heads, and if you don't know them well, yeah, there's certain terms you will need to know, and if not, hire someone that does, so you can do the creative stuff. But don't just flop about saying you can do it when you can't.
There's a saying somewhere, it goes, you can play guitar, but you can't play business. you gotta you
Yeah,
gotta know the business.
yeah, and if not, probably just look into hiring someone, look into someone that can actually give you advice on where to go, or maybe they're looking for an internship or they're looking for experience themselves, and they might actually want to help you out and actually get something going.
Yeah, so
Mm.
much fun. Love
Oh
it.
yeah. Well, Dan, do you have anything sort of last to say? Any upcoming sample areas coming out? Any upcoming volumes from the company? Your own stuff? Anything you want to give a little shout to coming up?
Well, yeah, yeah, I'll definitely promote the
Go
new
ahead.
YouTube that's coming out. It may be out by the time whoever is listening to this is listening to it. So YouTube, CrimeSonics, we come right up, and so definitely give that a subscribe and hit that notification bell. We're making a lot of really useful content, and then we're always creating stuff for Sample Hero, and you know, keep your eye out for some stuff going on there too, because we're going to do some interesting giveaways very soon.
Sounds good.
And we're actually phasing out a couple of products. I won't articulate those now, but so we're going to deeply discount a couple of things that are going to be wrapped into other things. And have, you know, as we've grown and figured out better ways to do things, we think that we've kind of even outgrown some software. So we're going to leave those behind. And so yeah, and then I guess the last thing I'll say is this: if I've said anything weird or offensive, it was definitely not intended.
I don't think you did, but I think in any podcast, people are anyone that I have on is free to say whatever they want. I'm a very I'm not a very strict person when it comes to talking about things. I know some people are, but I don't want to police people with speaking their own opinions and own mind. It's a podcast that's free speaking, so people can say whatever they want. But I don't think you're offensive at all. You're fine.
Yeah, yeah, I have found that out the hard way recently. I'll leave that there.
Well, I'll leave all the social links for all of Dan's stuff in the description of this video, the website, the YouTube, where to find him if you might want to contact. But as said before, don't spam. But everything will be in the description of this video. And Dan, I just want to thank you again for actually coming on. It was very insightful. I'm sure we'll have you on again in the future if you want it. We can have you more
Always.
in-depth chat. And
Yep, always.
whoever's listening to this, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave a like in the video and subscribe to the channel. There'll be more podcasts to come.